Welcome back to All Titans Talk. I'm your host, Lane Mills, and it has been a wild time for Titans football since I last hopped on here. I know I said I'd do these podcasts semi-regularly. I think it's been 10 days since our last update. If you know the drill, you know I've been over on the site, Titans on SI, breaking the free agency news daily. And then, of course, right after free agency, we had jerseys, trades, the whole ordeal. So we're wrapping everything up into one episode today and just kind of keeping everybody updated here. If you want the news sooner, you can go check us out on the site, and we also post over on Twitter at All Titans Talk. So that's kind of the circle we're in here. I figured I'd hop onto the pod today and just kind of spin a big off-season recap so far episode to just kind of bundle up what Tennessee has done. So of course, free agency started last week. Monday opened for 4-year players to sign new contracts, and so the gates sort of just swung open. Tennessee, from the jump, even a few hours prior to, I think it opened midday, Tennessee was seen as one of those teams that was going to be active. How active we didn't know, but now in retrospect, I'm not sure a team has signed more players than the Titans. So the gates open. An hour or so goes by. If you're on Titans Twitter at all, or Titans social media at all, you know that means fans are hitting the panic button. People were calling for Mike Burgundy's job, and we're not making any moves. What are they doing? Are they asleep? And then finally, the button was pressed, and from there, it did not stop for days. So the first signing, I think to my memory, was Mitch Trubisky, which a lot of people came down hard on the Mitch Trubisky signing, and they were like, why do we need a backup right now? Why we have Will Levis on the bench? But if fans remember, Ward going down against Jacksonville in the last game of last season led to a 41-7 loss. Ward is recovering fine from his injury. He's returned to throwing activities. He's going to be okay, but Tennessee needs a reliable veteran backup. That helps Ward's growth. It'll help him develop into the quarterback that the franchise and fans want him to be. But it's also just an insurance option. If the rookie goes down or something along those lines, Trubisky proved in Buffalo with a solid no turnover season as a backup that he could play that role. He's not a starter. He's not the kind of guy that Tennessee's going to throw in there if Ward's playing bad. He is insurance and he's veteran leadership. So that first pickup I personally liked. Of course, I wanted more explosivity off the rip there, but that was to come. You've got Daniel Bellinger, New York Giants tight end. Brian Daboll ties. Of course, that's a common trend we'll jump into as well. Tennessee added some size at the tight end position and then thereafter lost Chig. So that makes sense. That looked like that room was going to overhaul anyway. I like him as a run blocker, that is Bellinger. But then things really opened up. So you see Trubisky and Bellinger, those two dominoes fall, and we kind of get some silence for a minute, and then the big one swings in, which was Wan'dale Robinson. So that's the first one we're going to jump into. Spent the first 4 years of his career as a wide receiver for the Giants. He's been kind of playing behind Malik Neighbors a little bit. Has been sort of the second string to him. But when Neighbors went down with an injury, Robinson stepped up, and with Jackson Dart, he was the wide receiver one. There, he had 1,000-yard season. He had 4 touchdowns. He's a small, speedy wideout. This is not a guy who's gonna go up and catch a 50-50 ball, but for the most part, his game is built on beating people before he has to go up and get it from them. And he's made a living off that in New York. And of course, his first 4 seasons being under Daboll, who is now offensive coordinator in Tennessee, just makes sense. That's congruency for that offense. Daboll has loved Cam Ward since last year's draft. So coaching him is one thing, but bringing what may have been his favorite receiver from New York into his new offense is going to be absolutely crucial for Tennessee. So we'll get into that wide receiver room in a minute. I thought Robinson was a great signing. I don't think he was overpaid in that 70 million 4-year range. You'll remember Tennessee paid Calvin Ridley 92 million on a 4-year deal just a few years back. I think comparatively, a young, still rising receiver like Robinson is a steal. And you remember we called that one on the pod last time, so that box is checked. I loved that signing, and then right after that, they go and get defensive end John Franklin Myers. That's another name we discussed on the last pod, and we have discussed a bunch on the site as what looked to be a big potential opportunity for Tennessee. He's a little older. I think Franklin Myers is 29, but he was a big part of that Broncos defense last year. He had, I think, 7.5 sacks in a unit that almost made it all the way to the Super Bowl. He's disruptive. He's now kind of just a veteran presence in the league. It was tantalizing to imagine him being paired with Jeffrey Simmons, just this sort of 1-2 defensive punch, and it almost seemed too good to be true until Tennessee pulled it off. I think it's a 3 year in the 60 million, maybe 63 million deal, if I remember correctly. That I think is another steal. Not a remote overpay, nothing too crazy as far as financials or long term there. You're bringing in somebody still kind of in the heat of their best statistical range in his NFL career. I love Franklin Myers' addition to the defense. And of course, Edge Jermaine Johnson, who was traded for before that trade, had been recruiting him, or before that signing, had been recruiting him on Twitter for weeks, and Titans fans fell in love with their new edge as a result. So just a cool process there. And those first couple of like big punch signings looked great for Tennessee. And then they go out and bolster the secondary. So you get Cordell Flott and Alontae Taylor. Flott, of course, more ties to the Giants, and then Taylor out of New Orleans playing for the Saints. These are two relatively seasoned cornerbacks. The Titans, of course, were looking to overhaul that unit. It didn't perform up to par last year. Tennessee's defense was Swiss cheese in the secondary, if we're being honest. Just kind of a messy year. You don't want to judge a lot of this roster or these players by last season under Brian Callahan, but it makes sense for Robert Saleh now calling the plays himself, changing the scheme up himself, and bringing a veteran like Gus Bradley in to pick up the slack on defense. It makes sense that they're going to want some changes from what Denard Wilson was doing. So I thought that sort of just like wan'dale and Franklin Myers felt like a big name 1-2 punch. You get that 1-2 punch in the secondary with Flott and Taylor. I think those are both really strong additions. It seems like to me, those signings and Tennessee put up, I think now the number has reached double digits as far as the people that Tennessee has brought in so far this offseason. I think Saleh is really working on building experience, proven playmaking. Of course, Tennessee entered the offseason with $100 million in cap space. They were not afraid to spend. Um, they've still got money to spend. We'll get into that, but it's a good feeling from Tennessee's perspective, from someone who's seen this team spend money the wrong way or not spend it at all. It's a good feeling to see this team and this new staff dive into an offseason rife with potential in free agency and just bite into it. Use your resources. Borgonzi and Sala teaming up to put together a team that is comprised of a bunch of pieces from a bunch of different places, but all of these guys have performed well and reliably at their positions. And they still have gas left in the tank. So it's not like signing a Snead or a Ridley who might be on the back end of their primes, but these are guys who have performed well for a while and are continuing to perform well. And in the case of Robinson, may not even be at the peak of their career yet. So I think it's a great jump to free agency that Tennessee has gotten out to. And it's not all about new players either. And what seemed controversial, but now it's a move that I'm a big fan of, is restructuring Calvin Ridley's contract. Team saves more than $10 million. Ridley takes less money to stay in Nashville, which I think is a move that should earn him some good faith with Titans fans. Of course, his contract I mentioned earlier, that 4 year, $92 million, that's a bloated deal. That's a really bloated deal. And when he was underperforming in Tennessee, missed a lot of time with injuries, just not looking like the wide receiver one, which is crazy to think that he was brought in to be the wide receiver one, but that was the case with Ridley. He just wasn't on that level. He wasn't playing to that degree. And so, of course, a lot of fans and a lot of people thought that Tennessee may move on from Ridley this offseason. But for the vet to take a cut and just try and fit into this offense, he's giving up that money to stick around. I think it's a great look. This is a guy that you brought in to be your big pass catcher, and even though you've sort of already filled that role with Robinson, and then we may even see Tennessee draft in later rounds a receiver as well. I think keeping Ridley around makes enough sense if he's willing to take the pay cut. I mean, again, Brian Daboll coordinating the offense. Ridley had his best collegiate year under Daboll at Alabama. That was in 2017. He led the team in receiving yards and then was taken first round in the draft because of how good he was at Alabama under Daboll. I think with those pieces in place, you're not losing much by taking a chance. Ridley doesn't have to be your guy anymore. You've got A.O. Manor, of course, DK, they're rising up in that unit, and Robinson too. You don't have to put so much weight on Ridley's shoulders. So him taking less money, returning to this unit with maybe less pressure, I think is a great sign. I'm a big fan of that, and I think Tennessee is gonna Cam Ward's gonna benefit from that. That's a guy he threw the ball to some last year. A little coherency there, a little congruency. Makes sense. So big fan of retaining Ridley. Also a huge fan of cutting Snead. Sort of inversely, you overhaul that cornerback unit in free agency. There's really no reason to keep him around. He had some off-field troubles as well. Just cut those ties. Get rid of that sort of dead weight in Snead, and that's what they did. That was another big contract they shed. You get a little extra cap space, and since then, with those two moves and a couple others, Tennessee is back up in the 70 million range. Last I checked, cap space wise. So still among the most money to spend in the league, and you could see more moves. I mean, there are wide receivers left on the market, like a Jawan Jennings, who went to Tennessee in college. Tennessee could still use help in the wide receiver room. If you don't want to draft and throw another rookie into a unit with a bunch of rookies already, you could go for someone like Jennings, who had 9 touchdowns last season with the Niners and has been an ultra reliable piece for them for years. Played there when Saleh was the defensive coordinator, so those ties are there. I would love to see Tennessee spend some of the money they have on continuing to bolster Cam Ward's receiving room with veteran pieces. I mean, if you slot Jennings in next to Ridley, that's going to make Ridley's job easier, and Jennings too when he gets here. So that's a signing I would look out for. Maybe like a Debo Samuel too. Of course, Tyreek Hill's in the market, but I wouldn't expect Tennessee to get involved there too heavily. It's a wild card. All that to say is Tennessee has money to spend. They've done a great job offensively and defensively, and just sort of building blocks, baselining these units. You probably look for a little more depth here and there. But as far as big names, Salah has reeled those in already, and we're maybe a little over a week into free agency. More money to spend, more time to spend. This front office has thus far earned the trust of a fan base who has been without any trust or without any safety when it comes to moves in periods like this in a long time. And then heading into the draft, Notre Dame back Jeremiah Love is looking like the favorite. Tennessee brought him in on a visit. Fans will remember that Cam Ward was the first visit post combine last year, and this year it's Love. It seems like, according to all reports and just the momentum right now, even DraftKings odds, that Love is the favorite to land in Tennessee. So then you zoom out and you've added Robinson, Ridley's retained. Uh, who knows what'll happen to Pollard if Love is drafted? But if you bring in like a talent first pick like Love, who could really, I mean, his combine metrics were Jahmyr Gibbs like, Bijan Robinson like. This is a guy that is shaping up. I mean, he had almost 20 touchdowns in his last season at Notre Dame. He was a Heisman candidate. This is a guy that's shaping up to change an offense no matter where he's drafted. If you're Tennessee and you're pushing Cam Ward in this young offensive vision as like your franchise future, and you swing on Love at that fourth pick, if he's anything close to what his statistics and metrics think or show that he'll be, you could be in business for a long time scoring the football in Tennessee. This is a fantastic prospect who is, if he's even remotely as good as he looks to be on paper, he will be worth that fourth overall pick. Running back might not be the need for Tennessee, but there are options at edge and receiver later in the draft if you're looking to address those positions. And if Love, it seems like he's already a favorite of Tennessee. If you combine these free agency moves with Love, we could be looking at a really, really serious turnaround in Robert Saleh's first year. You go from 3-14. I'm not saying this is going to be a Super Bowl team, Patriots level turnaround. But if you're adding serious offensive talent like this across the board and you're bolstering your defense and you're spending the money you have on some of the best players available, we could see maybe a 4 to 5 win jump, maybe a sneaky wild card team. I don't know. I think fans should be really excited from what we've seen so far. Moves are far from over. Offseason is far from over. Tennessee could get involved in the trade market again. We don't know. But for the time, the offense and defense have gotten markedly better. Tennessee is favored to take maybe the most overall talented offensive player in the draft. And they're lined up to do so. The Raiders are probably almost certainly going to take Mendoza with the first pick. It'd be the shock of the decade if they don't. Jets seem to be eyeing Arvell Reese at 2. They have no reason to take Love. They just re-signed Breece Hall. And the Cardinals at 3 will probably go defense or elsewhere too because they just signed Tyler Algier out of Atlanta. They re-signed James Conner. That unit for them is full. So unless someone else trades up, Tennessee by all means should be expected to take Love. I think I can say confidently at this point, um, barring a massive change of heart. So that's kind of the personnel side of this offseason. It's been really busy so far. Tennessee, I think, objectively has gotten a lot better and made more splash moves than almost any other team in the league. And the other big thing, of course, is the jersey reveal, which everyone's excited about. We've got our new logo. I think it's in this corner, with that light blue and the red, just kind of matching that reveal. A much more Oilers retro style. I think has been received really well by fans. It's a good push from the front office to go, hey, we're investing in the roster here. You can see your team's getting better, and to push forward this like new vision for the franchise. Here's a new look. And it's not just to sell jerseys and merch, although I have already bought a quarter zip and plan on rocking that. in the next pod with that new logo. But it's just it's a good thing for a franchise to feel fresh. Tennessee has not been good, has not competed in years. Even I mean, people were upset with the Mike Vrabel firing, but they were only really upset when he did well in New England. And that system services him much better. Of course, not to say that that was the right move, but Tennessee needed a fresh push from the likes of Borgonzi, from the likes of Sala, this new completely overhauled staff that has led to a completely overhauled roster. It feels good to have an aesthetic change, push that too, to convince people that much further that this is a different football team. This is a different franchise. There's new standards across the board. The jerseys look great. The all white with the white helmet and the white face mask is top notch. Might be some of the best in the league. That's subjective. Of course, it's easy to get excited, but this commitment to an old look and feel, um, slightly updated. You've got the guitar strings on the straps on the helmet, which are clean. Just a cool overall rebrand worth discussing. It's a fun time to be a Titans fan, and heading into this draft, people should be thrilled where this franchise is headed. Who knows how things are going to pan out? We'll see how solid is as an in-game coach. He hasn't done it as a head coach since the Jets. Brian Daboll as an offensive coordinator, that hasn't been a thing in years. That was his calling card for a while, but there's a lot of question marks. You don't know how Robinson's going to look in a new system. You don't know if Ridley's restructure will actually pay off. Some of those older defenders that were signed, we'll see how exactly they pan out. There's a lot of things that don't really matter until the team touches the turf. But as far as this offseason goes, I think it is comfortably the best and most thrilling Tennessee has put together in a long, long, long while. So fans should be thrilled. They have every right to be going crazy on Twitter as they are. I think I covered everything in this episode, most of the big beats. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments of this video or wherever you're watching or listening. Again, you can check us out on the site, Titans on SI. You can go hit us up on Twitter, All Titans Talk. I've been Lane Mills, and this has been All Titans Talk.